Thank you. Feel free to join the choir. It's Peg's turn now, Peg Dickson, with Life Passages. Here she is.
Good morning. This is the time of the year, according to nature-based traditions, that the veil is the thinnest between the worlds. Our pagans refer to Samhain, which is an interpretation of All Hallows Eve. Raised as a Catholic, we would attend Mass for All Souls Day, All Saints Day. That's around November 1st, November 2nd. And meanwhile, our Mexican neighbors were celebrating Day of the Dead. And they would head to the cemetery and have a picnic at their loved ones' graves. Some set a dinner place at their table, inviting the spirits of those who have passed on to join them. And in the Celtic traditions, they were carving turnips into jack-o'-lanterns to put by the front door to light, to keep the bad spirits away during this time. Now, how all over the world there were similar celebrations from pagan traditions, nature-based traditions, and then our Christian traditions are interesting. And one of the reasons we started observing here a Day of the Dead is one reason. I have worked in the school system for 20 years and have many coworkers who are from South America and Mexico. They mostly wanted to assimilate, so they gave up some of their observances because they're very involved with the Catholic Church, so they're more celebrating All Saints and All Souls, whereas our Unitarian Universalist congregations have acknowledged the necessity for discussion around end-of-life practices and wishes, hoping that people can design their own rituals around their exit from this earthly plane to whatever it is we can't know what's beyond. But I was also involved with Sunday school here for the religious education for 14 years. And when I brought my son here 25 years ago at 5 years old, I was still struggling with some of the embedded traditions and thoughts that I was raised with. So luckily, we, in a certain capacity, we ask why we're here, what's the purpose, and in celebration of our principles, where we are encouraged to a responsible search for truth and meaning, I've been looking back and realized that we're all on that journey our whole life, as long as we're not boxed in by things that we believe. And when I walked into this fellowship 30 years ago, or longer, because I was searching for a Sunday morning community, this painting spoke to me, because to me it represents the spark that we all share, the spark that originated in the Big Bang. Now, some people who are very religious don't believe that the Big Bang has any significance in our lives. But I firmly believe that we are stardust. We are all made of the same elements that we find all over the universe. We are made up of the copper and the oxygen and the hydrogen and all the different things that we find even in meteors. I think every now and then there's something new in a meteor, but mostly we're all made of the same stuff. So my personal influences, being raised an Irish Catholic, a lot of the Irish are very sort of loosey-goosey religion, because we always had the concept of spirits and leprechauns and that sort of thing. So it kept me open to the concept of the mystical, the metaphysical, and once again, coming here and studying some of the history of Unitarian development was the Transcendentalists influenced the American Unitarians, and so I was searching for a way to get away from the that death culture of the crucifix, the pain and the suffering, and as a child it kept me awake at night to think that was so horrendous. And around 6 years old I realized that God would not be so cruel to have created a hell. So there was different cruelties, the way this father would treat his son, and also the concept of hell, and I rejected that as a young child. I got to live in the Far East and observed ancestor veneration, ancestor honoring in Japan and in Hawaii, and I saw the Hare Krishnas in the airports and decided to read some of Eastern religion, the Bhagavad Gita and a couple other things which were hard for me to even understand. But it opened my mind to broader thoughts. So I just want to mention my concepts and how they developed, and why we introduced Day of the Dead here was on behalf of the children. But as we saw that everyone reacted well and were moved to speak about someone who had passed on, and sometimes the rest of the year you're with your own thoughts, and we don't always tell people that I'm thinking again about my mother for 20 years said, I don't know why your father had to die and leave me here. And I said, because you needed to meet your grandson. And she would say, well, yeah, but. So she sort of held a grudge for 20 years that she was having to live alone. And she just couldn't seem to let that go. And to me, that was sad, but we kept reminding her that life is a gift that we need to be grateful for. And that's why I come most Sundays, is because I want to express my gratitude. I do not believe in a personified God. I believe that, well, I'll tell you how I got to what I believe. At 15, I heard Alan Watts speaking, and he would, in his matter-of-fact, raspy voice from his earlier years of smoking and probably alcohol abuse, Alan Watts pointed out that in the West, we see time as linear, and that the concept of time that is linear has this beginning and end. But he said it was cyclical. He pointed that out. And then Matthew Fox, who was a Catholic priest who was excommunicated from the Catholic Church for referring to God the Mother, he started thinking, why did I get more out of Friday night services as a young man than Sunday? And he realized that the Friday night services were dedicated to the Blessed Mother, and that meant a lot to him. And he started doing more earth-based recognition in his spirit-based in his services. So one of the things he did at a workshop I went to was singing about the elements. Earth I am, fire I am, water, air, and spirit I am. Then I came to this fellowship, and a lot of the mothers were starting to meet in circles and talk about, they wanted to know more about the four directions and nature-based religions. And as we learned and practiced, we met Barbara Walker, who's an author. She was brought here as a guest. She was an author and a knitting pattern designer who in her elder years wrote the women's dictionary of secret symbols and sacred symbols and objects. And she wrote feminist fairy tales. She adapted the fairy tales to a more feminist perspective. She actually came to our fellowship and helped with our circles. Peggy Beck was an artist and potter who led classes at Sarasota UU for women's spirituality, the Cakes for the Queen of Heaven and Rise Up and Call Her Name, which are Unitarian Universalist curriculums that were developed apparently in the 60s and 70s on the West Coast. And so by the 80s, they had made their way over here. In the 80s and 90s, we were a little behind. But she taught, her books address the ancient times. Kay Jackson was a member here who was a university librarian who was also writing papers on feminist spirituality. Kay died a few years ago. I think she was in her 80s when she passed away. She gave us a lot of the things she wrote to contribute to the movement. Joseph Campbell spoke about us needing a modern religion for modern times. And I feel that we're on the right track. Unitarian Universalists are on the right track. So we're all on our search for truth and meaning, but what we believe about death can start very young. My mother used to say, if you said, I have my ears are ringing, she would say, well, say a prayer for the dead. That's what that means when your ears are ringing. You're supposed. So we would go, pray for the dead, pray for the dead, pray for the dead, because we hadn't really been taught a prayer of sorts. And sure enough, the ringing would go away. The other thing in the car, we would sing, oh, the Lord is good to me, and so I thank the Lord for giving me the things I need, the sun and the rain and the apple seed. The Lord is good to me. The cars are rolled down, and we're chewing juicy fruit gum and driving to New York to visit family from New Jersey. We were lucky in that we had a balance, but it was still scary. And coming here and learning about the four directions and the cycle of life, that life is a cycle. And thanks to Hakuna Matata and the Lion King, millions of people that had not really thought of that concept got introduced to the concept of the cycle of life. And when here our pagan or nature-based traditions look at, again, it's seasonal. Like the agriculture, everything is seasonal. But we also have to find our center. And if you can find your center where you feel comfortable, you may be able to open up and feel more comfortable about passing over. When we can get rid of the fear, the goddess circles where I don't feel that I worship. When we speak of a worship service, that's a word that I left with my former life in organized religion. I feel more that I come here to express my gratitude for the gift of life. And so I didn't switch from a worship of a human looking entity like a male to a female, the goddess, but the expression of joy and love that I felt from some of our celebrations. I am opening up in sweet surrender to the numinous love light of the one. The expressions around the goddess. We all come from the goddess, and to her we shall return like a drop of rain flowing to the ocean. Giving over to the joy and the beauty of the universe, the elements. My body will not walk again, but the energy that's in me cannot be destroyed. Energy is never destroyed. So whether our essence dissipates and joins the grand oversoul that Emerson spoke of, or whether our essence stays in a form that it retains its consciousness, we'll never know until after we've taken our last breath. But our attitude can help when we are dying. When my father died, after 5 years of treatment for Hodgkin's lymphoma, and he worked right up until the last year, maybe even the last 6 months, I left Florida and went to stay with them in New Orleans. And I spent the night in the hospital. We had been taking turns, and the night before he passed, he said to me, "Well, isn't this a damn shame?" And I said, I know I wanted you to come to Florida and, spend time. The birds are so beautiful here. And now they used to bring us to Florida in the 50s, late 50s, early. So we drove down from New York, and that's when it was really wild. But so here I am in 81, saying, yes, it is a shame. And he said, "Now I want you to take care of your mama, okay?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we'll take care of Mom." And the next morning he passed at 10 o'clock, and I called the family, and because I didn't think he was dying, I asked the nurse to give him a bath, I thought, he's in rough shape here, I should ask for a bath. And within an hour after that, he passed away. And so the family came, and we spent a little time. I don't remember, that's a blur, but my sister drove me back to the house. And as we were approaching the house, this came on the radio. "I'm not scared of dying, and I don't really care. If it's peace you find in dying, well then let the time be near. If it's peace you find in dying, and if dying time is near, well, bundle up my coffin, 'cause it's cold way down there. I hear that it's cold way down there. Give me my freedom, Lord, all that I need. All I ask of living is to have no chains on me. All I ask of living is to have no chains on me. And all I ask of dying is to go naturally. I only want to go naturally. And when I die, and when I'm gone, there'll be one child born in a world to carry on, to carry on." It was another 8 years before my son was born, but I thought, I wonder if he's the one that we're waiting for. So we can try to just be open up to that sweet surrender. And my thoughts changed after yesterday's terrible killings, and it's I feel bad speaking of our own personal passage, because many of us will have a choice. We'll grow older, and we'll die of many things. But a violent death is different, and I don't really know what to say about violent death. But I do know that we are fortunate in this country. These horrible things are happening more than before than we can remember. However, all over the world, we've got people that are living in bombed out houses and dealing with terrible injuries in war zones. And I have mixed feelings as a new person, Unitarian, about praying, because I say, gosh, is there a God that this world could be so cruel? I'm still searching, particularly after the recent events. But I do what I can to help other people, and this celebration today, or this, let's say, veneration of people that have passed, is to help us all be able to remember them, remember with affection, and share with our friends in the community. And it's something that I do look forward to each year, and remembering my dad, particularly today, who decided to be cremated, even though traditionally that was not accepted in the Catholic Church. But his request was that he had worked with managing ships, so he decided he wanted to be cremated and have his ashes put in the only ocean he had never sailed, which was the Indian Ocean, because he was a merchant seaman for 20 years before he got this other job. So on October 10th, 1981, this telex came from the SS Amy Likes from Likes Line ship, that at 15:30 the vessel's engines were brought to a stop. A eulogy and prayers were offered for John Murtha. At 15:36, buried John Murtha's cremated remains 9 miles east of Ponta de Barra, Mozambique, in 132 fathoms of water, at latitude 23.46 and longitude 34.41, resumed sea speed. Water, put me in the water. Water flows all over the globe. My mother decided too. She died 2 days before 9/11. She was cremated, and we went out in a friend's sailboat and put her ashes in the Gulf. Again, flowing all over the earth. We are the flow, we are the ebb, we are the weavers, we are the web, the interconnected, interdependent web of life. If we can recognize that, the essence flows through me, flows through you. Hopefully when we pass, we can open our arms and say, I'm ready. Drew and I are going to do Teach Your Children in honor of starting Day of the Dead here 20 years ago, I believe. The kids were around, my son was around 10 years old. Drew's son attended here for many years. Corey's now 30-year-old son attended here. And so we're going to do Teach Your Children in honor of the children that we initially started this service for. And then Barbara's going to play for us while we start our honoring of our ancestors. And we have a mic for people to bring up mementos or photographs. And feel free to speak or not speak. You do not have to speak if you're not moved to. But this is a lovely way to remember our loved ones. Sing along if you know it. Maybe as tall as Drew.
You who are on the road must have a code that you can live by, and so become yourself, because the past is just a goodbye. Teach your children well, the Father's hand it slowly goes. sigh and know they love you. And you of the tender years can't know the fears that your elders grew by, and so please help them with your youth. They seek the truth before they can die. Teach your parents well, their children's hell will slowly go by, and feed them on your dreams, the one they fix, the one you'll know by. Don't you ever ask them why. If they told you, you would cry. Just look at them and sigh, and know they love you, and know they